We are live. Welcome, everybody, to this Easter Sunday edition of the Council of Miniature Painters. We are featuring Runic Racoon is with us today, all the way from the dumpster, and decided to take a day out today and join us here in the Monster Den. Tonight's topic is going to be what defines a pro miniature painter. So that is going to be our topic, and that's going to be different for everybody, what they define as a pro painter versus an amateur or versus just a hobbyist. All those kind of great questions. But if you have any other questions for us tonight, please put it in chat. And Michael Paints Minis, how are you doing tonight? Firstity first for Michael Paints Minis. And Otis is here, ready to go. Are you ready, Otis? Of course, as long as I got treats. He is ready. So, without further ado, I think we're just ready to jump right on into the Council Miniature Painters, and we'll go over what we've been working on and do the round robin to start. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Monster Den. Let's head over to the Council. All right. Okay, why isn't the Council counseling? I know why. I forgot to do something. There we go. Now the Council is counseling. All right. Welcome, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Let's do a quick sound check to make sure I'm hearing everybody. Somebody say something.
Testing.
Say something.
Yep. All right. Something. It's working. All right. Just wanted to make sure.
We did it.
We did it.
I feel like you need to do like an introductory where like, you're wondering why I've brought you all here today.
Yes. Hi, I'm Ed, and I'm a mini painter.
Hi, Ed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the Brush Lickers Anonymous.
Yes, the Brush Lickers Anonymous. So
Quantum has his hand up. I believe he's whitelisted. I believe that both he and Blades can join the stage.
Yeah, should be able to. Quantum's got his
For
hand
a
up.
price.
Oh, yeah. There's Black Skull. There's Black Skull is here. So right now in the council, we've got James Wapple, always a pleasure. Runic Racoon, our special guest. Painterly Git, Black Skull, and myself. And in the audience, we got Quantum Reveries and Blades. I will make sure
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay.
And let me make sure that yeah, I know Quantum is capable of getting in. But I will check it just to make sure.
That appears to have worked.
Yeah, that's all good. That did appear to work, because you are now in here. All right.
You may come to regret that.
Oh, Blades isn't in the right group. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
Man, it's been a while. My goodness. Okay.
What
All
did
right.
Blades do to get blacklisted?
What hasn't Blades done to get blacklisted?
He's spending too much time in Florida. Luna!
I mean,
Luna Mara is here. How are you doing tonight? So we're just getting going here. We're going to talk Council Miniature Painters featuring Runic Racoon. And our topic tonight is going to be hobby miniature painting versus professional miniature painting versus amateur miniature painting. We're just going to kind of talk about, the differences between, I think we get that question a lot here is when do I call myself a professional miniature painter? And I think that's a great question that I think a lot of people get to a point in their miniature painting and say, when am I a pro? When can I consider myself a pro? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So, but first, we're going to go around. We're going to do our round robin. That's the thing we always start with. And to just say, what have you been hobbying? and what's been on your hobby bench for the last month since our last Council of Miniature Painters. So as always, guests first. Mr. Runic Racoon, thank you for joining us here in the Council of Miniature Painters. And introduce yourself and let us know what you've been doing for the last month hobbying.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure. What have I been doing? First off, hi, I'm Runic, or Runic Racoon. Most people know me as the resident trash panda, who has a whole group of other trash pandas that they hang out in the dumpster. We call it the Raccoon Saloon. As far as hobbying goes, I recently got a absolute horde of orcs from Games Workshop that um, I promised a friend of mine they were getting rid of their collection. And I was like, let me paint those up. I'll list them and I'll sell them. I'll give you MSRP back. You don't lose any money. And that's kind of been what I've been doing. So I worked on some mega knobs, made them all modular, and then I did um, just the faces and some other stuff for the Storm Boys. I have like 4 other boxes just sitting in the corner I got to work on. But aside from that, and it's currently finals for college. That's the big one I've been working on. Just trying to get that done so I can go back to painting.
Yeah, I would say that's a big one. that's man, can be a very stressful time for a lot of people. I know it was when I was in college, but that was a long time ago when, I used stone tablets to take notes. But,
Stone tablets? Did you like write the 10 Commandments too?
no, it was just after the 10 Commandments. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was when it was all the rage. Got
Yes.
it.
But yeah, that was a while ago. Okay, so you're obviously a miniature painter, but do you do any gaming as well? Do you do anything with your miniatures besides paint them and sell them or give them away? Do you do any gaming?
Well, I think the big thing that we all suffer from, I kind of think this is topical for like what is professional versus what is just a standard hobby painter is I feel like I want to play with my models, but I have a lot of models to paint, and I don't know if I have time to play because I have too many models to paint. So the answer to that is yes, when I have time. When that is, I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
I've been trying to play Warcry. I actually had the table set up the other day, and by the time I got done assembling like a model or two, my friend had to leave, and then I left the table set up overnight, and I just thought to myself, maybe I'll just play a game by myself. I'll play as one team versus the other. That's how I'll play. But with this being the digital age, no, I have not played a lot of games, but I do want to.
So Warcry would be your game of choice if you were playing a game right now?
Yes, currently.
Cool. Very good. Excellent. All right, let's move on. We're just gonna go clockwise around. Let's see. So Painterly Git would be next in line. Painterly, what have you been working on?
Hi, I'm Painterly Git, and I consider myself a filthy casual for the topic of the night. I have, in the last month, I've finished the Project 3.0, and I should be getting that sent out to you on Tuesday, Runic. I forgot that the post office was closed Friday and Monday. I have also been painting some stuff for Dungeons and Dragons. I've convinced 3 trusting people to let me run a couple of one-shots for them. And hopefully we get a campaign going from that.
Nice. Wow. People trusted in you to do their Dungeons and Dragons, huh? Boy, they're going to be in for it, huh?
Of DMs, and there aren't a lot of DMs compared to the number of players. And like I said, they're trusting people, and we'll cure them of that eventually.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're going to cure them of that, right? All right, just don't do what Black Skull does and put a frog in a room and make them spend 4 hours trying to figure out what it is. Actually, you should use that. But anyhow, all right, so great, sounds good. Welcome, thank you, Painterly Git, for being here and arranging all of our guests as you always do. Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna go around the horn again to Quantum Reveries. Quantum, what have you been working on besides your deck?
Uh, well, I've been working on my deck and more deck. Actually, I haven't been doing any working on my deck. That was the contractors. And to be honest, I haven't been doing a whole lot of nothing lately. So tonight, while discussing, I just picked up a random mini to paint, and that is a hobbit riding a dog holding a sword. Like I think Blades might be familiar with it.
Hobbit?
The dog's holding a sword?
Yes, I think I glued the piece back on wrong. No.
All right.
Anyway, um, I haven't been doing a whole lot of stuff. I think most of the regulars know me as a streamer, though I've been on hiatus while taking care of my wife through her illness. So, but now getting back into the hobby, and uh, current game that I'm playing is Star Wars Legion, in that a coworker has convinced me to finish up one of my unpainted armies and play against him. Uh, Hopefully, we can set up some time to do that after work one of these days coming up here. And that's kind of it for me right now.
All right, very good. Very good. Excellent. Yeah, we do miss your streaming, but certainly understand, yeah, got your priorities. So it's
I
yeah.
will resume at some unspecified time.
All right. Sounds great. All right, so we're gonna continue going around to well, let's see. Well, we're gonna do Black Skull next. Black Skull.
Wow, I'm really glad that was such a hard decision for you.
Well, it's like I was going around, and you're kind of at the bottom, so it was like, okay, well,
Wow,
that's
wow,
around.
you're just digging a hole right now.
That's right. So what have you been up
Well,
to, man?
now that Adepticon's over, I can go back to some projects I kind of started on and kind of had to leave by the wayside, and so I'm back to working on Edie Van Halen. I finally did her redo, and some of the re-oil work on her skin has now pushed me further now because I've gotten what I wanted now. I'm also working on a couple of old confrontation miniatures, Wolfen miniatures that I had stashed a while that I kind of played with, and then Adepticon came and I got sidetracked. But now I'm back to working on those. And of course, I'm moving on with the next Marvel United piece. I'm going to do Groot this time now for the Guardians of the Galaxy box. So I'm finally going to do Groot. And lastly, I bought some stuff from SYZ Games a long time ago off of Etsy. They were feminine superhero models that are not certain characters, just for copyright purposes. But I found one of the original, one that looks exactly like the original Ms. Marvel, Kathy Danforth from the 70s and 80s. And that's what I'm painting her like. So I'm working on that. Just getting back to business now that Adepticon's over and I don't have to worry about things. And I am starting to lay the ground foundations to get my model together for hopefully ReaperCon.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Our next person is Blades. Blades,
Hello.
what have you been doing?
Well, I was away for a week this month in Florida, so I wasn't doing any painting then. I made Pride Rock with the lion that I put on it, so he represents Simba. And to sculpt Pride Rock, I used the tinfoil technique to sculpt the epoxy stuff around it. And it looks a little sad, but I mean, it's not bad for my first try. So I did that, and I've been mostly working on things that have been gifted to me, like this puking gnome from Gravity Falls. That was a gift from Sharp to Smoke. So I painted him. I just started painting up this Archangel from Diablo. So he'll probably be done in 2 or 3 streams. But yeah, just odds and ends here and there.
Very good. Very good. And
Mm-hmm.
I think like everybody else, you're pretty much focusing on miniature painting and not really doing any gaming per se.
Right. Right. Yes.
Excellent. 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 Well, yeah, I think you were in Florida traveling around, right?
I was. I went to Orlando for a week,
Cool.
getting burned and then tanned and then burned again and then
What,
tanned again.
what was the highlight from Orlando?
Well, we didn't do any touristy stuff really. So for me, just relaxing and sitting around the pool every day
There's nothing wrong with
at the
that.
resort.
Nothing wrong with
Oh, we did
relaxing.
exactly. We did see Drawn to Life at Disney Springs. So basically, they had like Disney movies drawn in the background and they had actors acting it out at the same time. So that was kind of cool.
Huh. Well, that
Yeah.
sounds interesting.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And let's see. Next is James Wapple. What have you
Hello,
been up to?
hello. I guess let's start with the most recent thing and work our way towards the past. So last night I was painting this right here. I actually painted this. This is one of the very first Loot Studios figures I ever printed out. And I painted this on stream probably about 2021, I think. And I thought it would be neat to paint this again using the new materials and techniques that I use now as opposed to way back then. So this was kind of fun here. Did that one last night. The night before was another one of our spacescapes because it was Flat Thursday. And we did this one here. Thursday before was this one. So basically, since Adepticon, we've been doing some nifty little, again, flat art. I've been wanting to do flat art on Thursdays again for quite some time. Finally got a chance to do that. Let's see what we got here. My stream anniversary was last week, 5 years. And this is the Mega Wapelius spell bust that I printed in FDM. So where's the original figure? Yeah, so this is the original figure here at 28 mil. I basically took him into the slicer, combined him with this Nerixon plinth right here, and then printed him out massively bigger. And we also painted up the plinth here with the Linseed Fellowship on there, of course. So thanks to everybody that joined me for that 5-year stream anniversary.
Wait a second. You combine the model right into the plinth before you printed it? Is that what you did?
Yep, that's what I've been doing. I remember I was talking about that on the last Council of Miniature Painters, and actually I think I showed a couple of other ones like this, where I was taking the Nerixon, basically any old plinth, taking the miniature and then essentially cutting it off roughly at the waist. So again, you can see all of this was basically cut off. You can see it ends right here at the scrolls, ends right there. So obviously this was sticking out of the plinth, so I had to go into the slicer and cut all that stuff away. But you can see just how much bigger he is as opposed to the miniature there. And that was all printed out in FDM, still using the 0.4 nozzle, but also using the 0.08 layer height and adaptive layers. This was another one here that, or is it of the Loot Studio? So this is normal 72 mil scale. This was printed in FDM. You can see it's just a wee bit bigger because she's sitting down and she's still way taller. You can see how much bigger that is. This was also painted on stream. It was about 5-hour stream, something like that. You've got, this is almost done. Later after the stream, I'm going to be filming episode 5. You might notice these references sitting over here. Those are some of the AI generated references that I use to be able to kind of imagine what the Trench Crusade freehand might look on a armored car like this. So I basically typed in show me Byzantine art, image of a saint, World War I uniform, and it really, as you can see, it made some really nifty stuff. That's just like 2 of 16 images that I had. So really, really nifty stuff. And again, gonna be this is gonna be the weathering episode. Filming that later tonight. Then at Adepticon, there was, well, we were somewhat successful. at the Resin Beast. So we got these guys, which we also then painted on stream, and we painted these to match the items. So I think this is, here we go. So this was for our dwarves here. Somewhere I got me a picture of dwarves. There they are. So that was the dwarf unit, also painted on stream. That one got best unit in the, I almost said crystal brush in Resin Beast. Is this, here we go. That bust got 3rd place. That would be this trophy right here. And as you can see, I tried to make it as close as I could to the bust. I mean, it was not an exact translation from, this to that, but yeah, close enough. And then where's our Guinevere here? So here we are. So this was the trophy for Guinevere. And again, painted all the trophies on stream. You could say I tried to again match it as close as I could. We did some blood effects on this one. That was pretty wild. So that's kind of again going from yesterday all the way back to Adepticon, and now this kind of stuff that you're seeing out here, all this is for that whole "do you want to be a miniature painter" discussion. That's what all this stuff is out here for. So I should yield the floor back to the people who need the floor.
Before you do, James, I have a question about your entry next year for Resin Beast. Are you going to be entering your trophies as your group entry?
I guess there are. I know people have been joking about it. I don't know how people are serious about it, but I was thinking they've done this for years. No, last year was wooden plaques. So this is the first year they've done this. So it would kind of be neat if they kept doing that. Actually, here's some stuff for Resin Beast. This would either be for unit or for diorama. And well, here's another. So that's what we'll be prepping up tonight. Actually, all of my entries, whether it was the large creature, the bust, whatever, every single brushstroke was either filmed in a tutorial, like the Guinevere, the bust, and the large creature, or it was done on stream, like the dwarves or my single figure. So everything, you can literally watch every brushstroke of everything that I entered.
Wow,
And we'll
that's
be doing
pretty
the same
impressive.
for Gen Con also.
Excellent, and congratulations, Jim, on everything that you did for Resin Beast. Quite a few trophies there, and also congratulations to Black Skull, who got the award for the Eldritch Foundry award for his Alice model, custom model. Hey, Goobertown, how you doing, Brent? Welcome in. We're doing our Council of Miniature Painters tonight, so yeah, so that was awesome. It was a great experience. So I guess I think I'm the one to go next. Yeah, so last one here. So yeah, Adepticon, great transition to Milwaukee for Adepticon. I know for some people it was a little harder to get there, but I think the venue was there was a lot of positive feedback as far as the venue itself and food and all the other great things that Milwaukee had to offer for a much bigger space, more hotel rooms, all those great things, and a much bigger Fort Wapple, thank goodness. Woo!
I'm sorry. I'd like to also say thanks to the Hilton and the Hyatt, who also offered lots of open gaming space and kind of gave the gamers a chance to open up and have free gaming space like 24/7.
Yeah, they pulled off the 24/7 thing really well. I was kind of surprised, honestly. I wasn't, how could they honestly pull off 24/7 in a secure conference center like the Baird Center with all the security guards and stuff, but they did it. Fort Wapple was open. The Golden Demon cases were open. It was great. I think they didn't go 24/7 until Friday night, though. I think it was Friday and Saturday were 24/7. And I think Thursday night they went late, but they didn't go 24/7, I think that's the way it was. Or at least the sky bridges. Fort Wapple was open, but I think Thursday night you had to go outside after a certain time to get to the hotel. But then the sky bridges were open Friday and Saturday nights. Yeah, and it was totally reasonable. It's the Pope said he preferred Milwaukee over Chicago. Honestly, that's reasonable, and I agree. It was reasonable. Everything seemed very reasonable. Even the food choices in the hall, in the Baird Center, were great. Pizza and sushi, and a lot better than that catered stuff at the Renaissance. So I think they did great. The only feedback I had is I would have loved, and this wasn't anything that had to do about the conference center itself. The only feedback I had was I wish they would have sent out the Adepticon magazine with our badges. Because I missed so much. I missed so many things that I wanted to see. And then, because I didn't have time to go through the book. You're at Adepticon. Who has time to read a magazine? Unless you're, up in your room, I guess, doing your daily business. But but I really would love to have seen the magazine come out in our badge envelopes. I mean, it's not going to cost them anything as long as it's printed, right? Because they're already sending you the badge. So that would have been great because I missed so much. And I wish I would have had the magazine ahead of time to peruse before going to Adepticon. Let's see, as far as hobbying goes, gosh, I've been doing all kinds of little odds and ends since getting back from Adepticon. I've been doing some 3D printing. I'm going to ReaperCon, so I have all of my arrangements made, so it's too late. A non-refundable plane ticket, so I am going one way or another. I'm going to Adepticon, so I'm starting to work on some pieces for that, doing some 3D printing. Also working on a project for Bench Guy. Sent me a model to paint, which I'm starting to work on, and tried to get my FDM printer going. It's struggling. I'm not going to get my new one until like June or July, which is the Elegoo Centauri Carbon is coming out, but I'm on pre-order for that, so I gotta wait to get that to do some of those, to start doing some of the things that James is doing with his, because some of that I saw those models in person at Adepticon, and they are amazing. The statue-sized models, that process is really down, and James has got the process, so I'm looking forward to getting a printer that I can try some of that stuff with. I could do it with my Ender 3. It would take like 3 days to print something though. So let's see what else. Really haven't been doing much else. Trying to get out of the habit of plopping down in front of the TV when I get home from work and plopping in front of the hobby desk. Oh, I've been building a Lego set. My son got me the Jaws Lego set from the Lego store for Christmas, and I finished building it today. Now I got to put the light kit in. I bought the light kit for it. So but that's been kind of different. I haven't built the Lego set in years. It was kind of fun. So yeah, Otis, what are you angry about? Come here, lay down. You don't like? I gave you this phone.
Is that the sound of a dog sighing very loudly?
Well, he's got this weird attitude right now. I gave him a bone, but he doesn't seem to like it. Lay down.
Navi will do that. She'll lay down on her bed and she'll just give the loudest, most exasperated, just
yeah, exactly. Ender Mungo says the Ender 3 is the Nokia 3310 of printers. Long live the E3. It's been a great printer. It's just slow as all get out. It just takes forever to print anything. Anyway, so let's again, thank you everybody for coming. We're doing, for those of you just joining us, we're doing our Council of Miniature Painters tonight. This is a live podcast kind of format, and we have our regulars here, as well as Runic Racoon, who is our featured guest tonight, And tonight's topic is going to be talking about beginning miniature painting, amateur miniature painting, pro miniature painting, basically the growth from being a starting miniature painter up to being a professional, and really what does it take to get through those steps. So, and anyhow, so Runic, why don't you start us off with the conversation? Where do you want to start with the topic?
Well, I feel like we should start where anybody would start in the hobby. You know, like, let's paint a history picture here. What would you define, like, your first model? Like, how does one feel when they pick up their first model? I'm sure it's very different for all of us, but like, I remember I got back from a deployment and I was like, man, I don't really know what I'm enjoying in life right now, because you get in this mentality of like making things. And prior to that, I was like a big gamer. I would play, your battle royale games and stuff, and they just weren't scratching that itch. My older brother, he was sharing stuff on like social media about him painting up his Tyranids, and that was kind of what inspired me to buy a model and start painting, because I was like, that's cool, I want to do that. And so I did the YouTube Academy. I got like my first set of paints. I got like apple barrel paints and a D&D model, and started there. Yeah, I think the starting point would be is where did you start? Because I think that helps define us as what makes you a hobbyist, what makes you a person. Is it just buying paint, or do you have to buy certain brands?
Yeah, good point. Oh, we got I didn't turn off ads. Dang it. We'll be right back, folks.
Womp womp.
Yeah, sorry. I normally turn off ads for this. I forgot to do it. And I will do that while we're at ad.
Since only the paying customers are listening, I think we should give our greatest insights now and point and laugh at everyone else.
So my greatest
Part where
insight
there's
is,
nudity.
oh man, I was gonna say nudity. We all know that
Mongo says
anybody who's
we left it at a cliffhanger. Join us next week when Runic says
yeah, we can do that. I'm all for it.
All right, we had a new follower. Bring up. Mungo followed the channel. Thank you. We have got Falling Freely is raiding into the Monster Den. Falling Freely, how are you doing tonight? We're at an ad break right now, so I forgot to turn off ads like a bad monster. So I've turned off ads now, but we're currently at an ad. So as soon as we're back, we will get started tonight. Started again. We were just starting our main topic.
Our hot topic, really.
That's right. Mungo, cousin, cousin. Isidore is here. Turn my volumes down.
Sorry, I was doing some airbrush priming. Who won the baseball game?
I don't know. I don't follow baseball. Painting by the Hill, thank you for that follow. Welcome to the Monster Den. All right, so 30 seconds until ads are over. Apologize for that. Apologize.
Bulldogs beat St. Kilda. That's all that matters.
I know the Brewers won today. They beat the A's like 17 or 15 to 1 or something crazy. Anyway, tonight we are having our Council of Miniature Painters right before we get back from ads here. Basically, what our Council of Miniature Painters is, we do this the third Sunday of every month, and we have different guests Next month's guest, I believe, is going to be Zambies.
Yeah, on
And
the 20th.
what is that?
Yes, Zambies will be with us on the 20th.
On the 20th. So next month, Zambies will be here. But tonight, we have Runic Racoon is here. And we're talking about kind of the evolution of miniature painting as far as, you know, why did you become a miniature painter? When do you think you became a pro? What does it take to say that you're a pro? And it's different for everybody. And that's what our topic is. And we just ended on a cliffhanger here. So yeah, I mean, I'll tackle that question. Much like you, Runic, I started because of not feeling the gaming anymore. I was a World of Warcraft player for many years, 15 plus years, and I don't know, I just wasn't I didn't like the fact that I didn't create anything, I didn't make anything, and that part of that goes to my job too, because I'm an IT person and I'm not a programmer, so all I do is support people. So I wasn't feeling like I was creating, I wasn't doing anything, I wasn't being a productive person as far as what I did both for a living and for my hobbies. So you know, it was kind of an accident. I ended up with a bunch of paints, good paints, you know, well, by my standards today, I would say they're okay, you know, Citadel paints. I got a whole bunch of them. And because my son did a league for 40K, and we got a free paint every time we played in the league. And I had all these paints, and I'm like, I'm either going to return these or I'm going to start painting. I'm going to try painting. And I picked up a brush and really enjoyed it. I found it relaxing. I found it took me to a good mental place. And just kept doing it. You know, just kept doing it. And that's where I started. Anybody else want to chime in on this topic?
I don't think Runic got to finish his thought there before the ad.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I guess I can. Well, I'll do the TLDR for those of you who missed it. I said that I got back from the military. My brother, he was sharing a lot of stuff on painting, and I was kind of looking for inspiration. And I used to do a lot of like sketching in school and like other simple stuff, but um, I ended up buying a D&D archer and a bunch of apple barrel paints. And I think I went to like the local Michael's or hobby shop, and I just got like the $3 pack of everything paints or paintbrushes. And I sat down and I painted it, and it's probably the worst thing I've seen anybody paint for their first model, because I have a channel in my Discord called Foundation, which is where I ask the community to share their oldest model or first model and their most recent model, kind of in a side by side. And I use that to direct people like, hey, if you're starting the hobby, go to this channel, check out where people started, and I'll kind of give you more inspiration than perhaps going to all these you know, insanely detailed works of art, all these, well, professionals. Because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by the detail. But yeah, that's where I started. Was just a weird D&D archer.
That's an interesting point, you know, showing a gallery of people's first miniatures. I still have my first one right here.
It's the Pope has a side question for you. I don't see what it is. Oh, if you're in a more infrastructure-based role, do you feel that may feel creative versus a more support-oriented role?
Oh, I think what he's saying is, you know, even in a job like IT, I'm a support person versus a creator. So It's the Pope is more of an infrastructure person. So he actually builds stuff, makes stuff, designs networks, does really cool creation. And I think it kind of depends on the person as well. I know for me, I'm a support guy. I've been managing a help desk for 30 years, and I have no clue why I continue to do that, because I'm too close to retirement now. But you know, I don't create. I support, and I don't make anything. So it's so yeah, I guess it could be different within, you know, within a vocation as well.
I've
Well,
always, or I've heard it said that behind every engineer is a frustrated artist.
Hey, interesting. That's a
Because if you think about it, especially software engineering, when I got into software engineering, I looked at it as the most pure form of problem solving, creative problem solving, because you worked with you worked with ideas and algorithms, and you made your ideas actually work, and there was none of this materials that you needed to get working, and uh, or you never ended up wasting materials. You could just re-edit your program and make it work. Uh,
So let me ask you a question, Runic. You said you started out with apple barrel paints, and did you feel that that was a hindrance? I mean, I've heard people who start out with sometimes with apple barrel paints that that's a hindrance to them enjoying the hobby. What do you think about that?
Um, I think at the time I was simply trying to do like the low budget thing. Um, it was also like what I had available. My family is kind of made up of a lot of different crafters that pick up something, put them down. And my mother, I think she was doing it for well, this is gonna be a really weird segue. So you know the stairwells that people have in their older homes, and they would like paint little decals on like the backing of the stair. I'm using a lot of terms I don't even know, but it was like filigree to make them look nice and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I do coat paint. That's what she used those paints for. But she was like, I don't like this anymore. I'm not gonna do it, and she ended up repainting it anyways. So I kept those stencils and those paints, and that's what I ended up using. So they might have been expired anyways. Like they probably have been sitting for a while, need a good shake. But I think when I was using them, it taught me what not to do right away. And I feel like that's kind of like the trial by fire a lot of times is sure you can be informed, you can have someone teach you, but I think you also learn very much by making those mistakes and allowing yourself to make those mistakes. So starting out with a paint that probably wasn't the best, it was like, oh well, now I know what not to do. Let's go on the thing that I know it will work a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this doesn't work. Let's try something else.
All right. Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, it's nice that you got over that hurdle. I know some people who have started that way and could not get over that hurdle. And they have gotten more frustrated and said, "Oh, this isn't for me." Um, and I guess you got to kind of take it with a level of patience to say, "Okay, if this didn't work, why?" And ask those questions versus just giving up. You know, I know a couple people who gave up after trying like apple barrel paints and like really inexpensive brushes, and then got frustrated with it. So interesting.
And I think a lot of that has to do also with people's perception of what skill is. And like, I think everybody has this expectation when they first start something that has to meet a certain level. But the thing is if you haven't done something before, you don't know what that level is going to be. So you have to, do it and accept the fact that's like, okay, I'm by my own definition not good at this. Do I just quit or do I keep trying to get to what I define as good?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anybody else? Let's see. Bring my. Lost my window. Let's switch over. Anybody? Jim, do you want to chime in at this point?
I think was the last month or the month before kind of went over our origin story, which was essentially more of a desperation kind of thing because we had been doing the 2D art. I'd been doing the 2D art for 20 some odd years. And then 9/11 came along and wiped out our 2D art business kind of in the same way that the pandemic wiped out so many businesses in 2020 and 2021 because our biggest art show of the year was going to be that weekend. So I think it was September 15th and 16th. Needless to say, that didn't happen. a whole bunch of other conventions either didn't happen or people were losing their jobs because of the subsequent economic issues that happened. $5 a gallon gas. We couldn't even ship out our art because there was this thing called the anthrax scare. So we actually couldn't get our Celtic drums because they got stopped at customs and they got cut apart with box cutters. So we had nothing we could paint for shows, and then the shows weren't happening. And we said, well, we need to be doing something else to make money kind of quick. At that time, we happened to be just casually painting Blood Bowl teams for friends that were in our league, and we were doing these kind of in the off season, and we'd make a little side money there. We said, well, this better be more than just side money. And we got very lucky that at that very moment, these two things called PayPal, well, three things, PayPal, eBay, and Cool Mini or Not all came along basically at the same time. To show you how long ago this was, to do an eBay listing, you had to do it in HTML.
I
That's how
remember that.
long ago that was. And what we were able to do was essentially have an uncancelable worldwide art show. And we said, wait a minute, you mean people from all over the place can buy our miniatures whenever, wherever, and we just have to send them to them? And this thing called Cool Mini is the place where we can advertise those. And that's pretty much what got things going. And it also accelerated our painting exponentially because as a Cool Mini, we started to see what all these other people were doing. And there was even the forums there where people would kind of show their techniques. And that's where we learned all kinds of stuff about the decorative basing and miniature lines like Confrontation, Hassle Free were coming out, War Machine, War Crow, all that stuff was kind of brand new at the time. So that was sort of changing the landscape of what was possible with miniatures and kind of what the expectation of paint jobs would be. And that is kind of where we got started, was back in that 2001, 2002. By 2003, miniature painting had overtaken all 2D art stuff, and we weren't doing that anymore. And thank goodness for miniature painting and things like, well, Twitch, because when 9/11 2.0 came along, we kind of saw what was happening. And that's when I switched over to doing the Twitch thing. So yeah, for us, it was kind of a no choice. It was either do miniature painting or I would be making 1-to-1 scale terrain, taking cardboard boxes and pink foam and making houses out of them, except to live in, not just to play miniature games in. So we thought, fun as it is to make terrain, we want to make 28 millimeter scale terrain, not terrain for us to live in. We want the miniatures to live in terrain. So that kind of will go into our further discussion about, what is a pro miniature painter kind of thing. It is, to me, it's like, okay, how do you define that? Is it what you do? Is that what pays the mortgage and the electricity and does the food? Or is it kind of what we did where the miniatures was, all right, December, January, there's really no conventions then. So maybe we'll do some of these Blood Bowl teams, this kind of commission stuff during the slow time. But obviously, there's different kinds of levels of pro, and it'll be interesting to see how people kind of speak on that.
Right. Anybody else want to chime in on their origin story?
My villain origin story or the painting origin story?
Yeah. Well,
Both, always both.
Yeah. We'll start with the painting.
Well, the first time I saw minis and thought that they were cool were back in the '90s. The guy who used to DM when we played second edition AD&D had a bunch of Ralpartha miniatures and the old Games Workshop D&D miniatures before they did Warhammer, right? Before they did Rogue Trader even. He had a bunch of those. None of them were painted. I just thought they were really cool. We never actually used them. We did all Theater of the Mind, but he had those minis, and how cool they were kind of stuck with me. Fast forward about 20 years, and I moved down to one of the larger cities in my province, and they had a game workshop store. And every time we went to the small, I'd pop into the Game Workshop store and think how cool this stuff is, and but I never wanted to buy it or play it or paint it because I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to screw up. Fast forward probably another 7 years, and I was in my friendly local game shop where I used to play Magic the Gathering, and I was looking at the shelf of the Warhammer miniatures, and the owner came over and said, "Hey, you want to paint one of these?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I don't have any paint, and I don't have any brushes, and I don't want to spend $30 on a box of miniatures." He's like, "No, no, no, no. We have we have stuff for people to try out in the store." So he gave me a high elf spearman. Um, and I spent 40 minutes painting it, and I had no idea what I was doing. I painted it with like some blue paint and red on the spear for blood, and tried to paint with a wash, and didn't understand why this paint was so thin and taking so many layers. Uh, so I ended up painting this mini and kind of liking it. I have the mini on my desk. And then a couple days later at work, one of the contractors is like, "Oh, I'm getting rid of these orcs." And I'm like, "Hey, I like orcs. How much you want for them?" And he's like, $20. It was two copies of the orc side of the Black Reach box that had like the old plastic copters in it, the death copters. So that is kind of what got me started into miniature painting.
Okay. So I already see something now. James and Runic, you guys already had some art background. I know Quandom had some art background. I did not.
I've got a degree, and I've also been an artist for about 30 years.
Right. So Black Skull's got an art background. Painterly Git and I do not have art backgrounds at all. That's interesting. I know Falling Freely had some art background. She's in chat. Turkey sandwich acquired. So it's like,
Yeah.
I knew a guy named Art when I was a kid. Does that count?
So interesting.
I got started out of sheer gaming roots. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons back in late '79, going into '80, and we played for a couple of years, and then AD&D came out, and we were playing on that. And we did a lot of Theater of the Mind, and then some people in the group started to talk about, would it be nice if we actually had, some kind of visual represents, because there would be sometimes rooms or encounters or stuff, especially in the early modules, which would be better if you could actually see what was there and look at distances and things like that. So I said, okay. So the first thing we did is we started with big styrofoam thing. We laid graph paper over it, and everybody got a special hat pin. We went out and bought our own unique like hat pin, and we played jump mumbly, peg with the pins for a long time in graph paper and all that kind of stuff. And at one point, I found the TSR lead minis had released, and I said, "Hey, we could put these together." And nobody, just like nobody wanted to run the game, nobody wanted to paint them. So they kind of befelled it to me to take over and do this. So I went and got the miniatures, and I figured, what the heck, I painted model cars and different things for Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek and airplanes and all kinds of stuff. So I said, what the hell? So I drug out my testers and I started working with it and went through the Trail of Tears of what happens when you have to work with lead minis that everything soaks up really badly, and all you have is Krylon, motor, engine block paint, primers, and how the testers, I ran through brushes, but I got some, fairly decent results. They were terrible miniatures. Luckily, a couple of years later, I was reading a Dragon magazine. I found out about things like Raupartha and Grenadier and those companies and stuff. And so I started picking those up. And then when Talisman came out, that was the first time I actually saw really decent kind of metal minis for the time frame. So I painted up the original 10 Talisman minis And then as time went on, I'd kind of fallen by the wayside. And when I got into college, sort of the same thing happened. And because at the time I was a graphic design and fine arts student at the university I was at, so the guys in the gaming group said, "Oh well, he's an artist; he can paint this stuff." So I started using heavy body acrylics from my art kit, and it kind of took off from there. And over the years, I just kind of started to do some things. But my real big jump with both feet was when I had my game store and comic book shop, and I ended up having to kind of really practice and do things because I was having to teach some basic classes just to get people to get some basic how to prime and how to do basic tones and colors and then some of the people for like Blood Bowl or Necromunda or some of those people would come in and I would help kind of with a box art kind of thing, and that's kind of whatever. Which is one of the reasons why I add that I to this day I have a problem with box art. Box art was good to me, sort of in the business sense, but it was terrible for the creative edge. And that's why I don't like it. But I never lost the fact that I was at least an artist, and I took things in different directions, or I did things in different directions, and I was always learning. And then after the store closed, I had just a big layoff. I wasn't doing anything at all. And around 2014, somebody talked me back into doing some stuff, and I've been here ever since. And I think I've improved in leaps and bounds, and I think I've gotten, thanks to the community. I probably would have given up earlier on had it not been for some of you people in the community and stuff. But mine came out of it started out as a sheer necessity from a gaming point of view. Then it moved into a business deal. And then kind of like Monster Den, it ended up becoming a mental thing for me. It became my solace. I was able to return to some kind of an artistic medium. I wasn't drawing as much anymore. That all of a sudden it came by, and it was kind of there when I needed it. And so yeah, and that's where I'm at since then.
Nice.
Yeah,
So,
like Black Skull, I had a big background in art. I can't imagine, how do you say, my mother was someone who very much encouraged me to do a lot of artwork, whether that be model making or painting or whatever. And so I I can't remember a time when I wasn't doing something like building a model kit, all the way back to like I think it was like the old Aurora Wolfman and Invisible Man kits, if
gosh.
you remember those plastic
Yeah.
models.
You know what?
Yeah.
It was a bitch priming that Invisible Man. I just couldn't see him half the time, and I was doing it when I was spraying around him.
I don't know. I had it all wrapped up. Um, but I I've always been doing model building and painting as long as I can remember. Going through, like I said, plastic kits, then later model trains, and that went through college, and then through my early career days, I was painting a lot of larger figure kits, and then uh, always a dabbler, never really getting too serious about it. Then finally, around what was it, 2012, 2013, Reaper Miniatures had their first Bones Kickstarter, and I picked up on that because I was kind of into board gaming at the time, and I thought that sounds really cool. I want to try that. My wife wisely put her foot down and said no, because she'd never heard of this Kickstarter thing before, and it didn't sound very trustworthy. Y- The idea of paying somebody and then waiting for months to get something just really kind of shocked her. So I managed to get, I think, the paints from the first Reaper Kickstarter, but I still wanted to do some of the models. And so I think, on Board Game Geek, somebody had put up a post saying, "Hey, I got my Reaper Kickstarter, and I'm looking for somebody to paint them." And I took a chance, and I said, "Hey, if you send them off to me to paint, I will do them, and then the payment can be more of those minis for me to paint. So it's like I paint one for you and I get one back. And that was my entry into miniature painting, and I haven't looked back since. And I guess that would also quote be my entry into quote professional miniature painting, because that was what the first time I'd started painting miniatures for any sort of compensation for some other person.
Interesting. I think that's a good segue. I think we need to. Boy, we're already an hour into this.
Yeah.
Time flies when we're having fun. So, so where should we go? Runic, what
Well, I mean, we're talking about origin stories and kind of what got us into the hobby as the starting group of people. Um, and I guess that's kind of like the midpoint now. Like, where do you start looking at yourself and going, okay, this is the milestone. This is where I think I am better enough, or not better enough, but I'm at a point where I am doing, we'll say, so good that maybe I should start making money off of this, or maybe I need to consider competition. Maybe I need to consider, um, you know, reaching out and painting things for other people. Because I imagine that most people's journeys into what we would call professionalism had to have that milestone, right? What was that milestone where you said, okay, this is where I do this more permanently or more defined as me? You know, when people identify themselves when they're talking to someone else, they're like, oh, hi, I'm such and such. I am a XYZ. At what point do you say I am a painter as opposed to a professional painter?
Hmm.
And to make it a little bit easy for me is I started doing Fiverr back in the pandemic because I was painting enough. I was like, why don't I try this? Let's see what happens. And I got a commission to paint Stinky Pete from Toy Story. There was a gentleman who wanted he resin printed all the pieces for it, and he was like a, I don't want to say a puppeteer, we'll say a sewist or maybe a seamstress, and he would make all the soft parts, all the textile stuff, and then he needed someone to paint the rest of it. So he sent me this. I painted it, and I think I only made like $60 off of it after they took their cut, and I was like, okay, that was fun. I really enjoyed that, and it was like, well, I can do this. I am capable of this thing. It is something I can do. Um, and I imagine you guys probably have similar stories of like teaching or, so that would be, I think, the next step is where did you start looking at yourself like an artist or someone who believed that they could do it more professionally?
that's a tough question. Yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say that for me is something that I could only look at in retrospect. It was like at the time I wasn't thinking, hey, I want to go and be pro. It was like, hey, I need to I want to get some of these miniatures, and you know, there's no other way to get it except to offer to paint them for somebody else.
yeah,
And from there, coworkers heard that I'd done that, so I painted up a couple of uh, uh, board game pieces for them, and then from there, I've done various mini painting, not for monetary, you uh, rewards, but just to pick up more minis to paint. And then it was Ed that encouraged me to go into streaming for myself, along with Painterly Git, if I remember, and Black Skull. At any point did I say I'm going professional? No. It's just something that happened because I wanted to do it, and then in the rearview mirror, I said, "Hey, that's what a professional does."
yeah. That's very true. I think most from what I know a couple people at my local game stores who are professional miniature painters, and I hear a common thread. You don't find professional miniature painting, it finds you. Whereas people see your work, think it's good enough, and ask you to do work for them. That could constitute you considering, even if you don't get money. Do you consider yourself a professional miniature painter if you don't get money, but somebody has asked you to paint something for them? That's kind of how it happened for me originally. And somebody just asked me, would you paint this for me? And I said, boy, have I gotten good enough to deserve that? And that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's I think that gets into the nuts and bolts of the conversation is, when are you a professional miniature painter? When you take money for it? When you're recognized for your work? When you win an award? I guess it can be different for everybody, really.
I would also throw in a little curveball. Back when I was doing it, from my business and stuff, but I consider myself professional because it was a service I offered, and there was, a lot of times there was remuneration. Sometimes I would paint things in order to sell a box set. I would do up, the both armies in the box set, and then sell it under that, auspice and charge a little more. But my curveball is, as part of this, whether you're a professional or not, I see, like at least in the modern times here, I see arguments saying that you are a professional painter or you can be considered a professional painter, but only if you end up doing things like Warhammer armies and things, that one-offs are not considered to be a thing. Because, and I'm sure that's because most people consider one-offs to be very lucrative, or they don't pay the bills often enough in the minds of a lot of people. But in the idea of painting armies en masse and doing lots and lots and lots of that, or painting armies up and then selling them, I think people consider that to be professional versus someone who, well, like James and I even like Runic and some other, and myself, who we do a lot of one-offs. We're not into big armies, although James, has his Lord of the Rings material, but a lot of the things that he does is more, and Runic is more artistic. So what I want to know is, how many of you feel like if you're not painting armies and you're just doing, single pieces that are more artistic pieces, are you still a professional, or because you're not grinding out and constantly being paid like a job, does that make you any less of a professional?
Oh gosh, you just added a
We
whole nother
painted
aspect.
thousands of miniatures. I must have painted at least 10 apocalypse-sized 40K armies, at least. That was really what we did. We didn't hardly ever get to paint the single figures. It wasn't until I started doing the streaming thing and I started moving away from the commissions, then I could actually do stuff like this where it was more of a single miniature kind of thing. What we always kind of used as the metric for, okay, are you a professional miniature painter, whatever, is how many of the miniatures are you painting are miniatures that you would choose to paint for yourself. Because when you're painting for other people, a lot of times you're painting something that you would never paint for yourself in a hideous color scheme that you would never choose for yourself. And you're also saying, boy, the last thing I
Amen,
want to
James.
do. Yeah, the last thing I want to be doing today is paint miniatures, but I have to be painting miniatures today. For us, it was always, if the answer to those questions is yes, then you're a professional miniature painter. Because it's kind of like, okay, you wake up in the morning and say, well, I'm not really feeling like going to work today, but well, you do it because again, there's that thing called food and electricity and housing and those essential things. And that was kind of where we said, okay, if you are doing those, if your existence relies on you sitting down and painting that miniature, and there's a cost to not doing it. That's kind of the pro thing, right? Because that's, you would consider yourself a pro in any other field, right? If you have to do it every day, whether you want to or not, you show up because you're getting paid to do it, or something along those lines.
Right, we got a couple of points in chat here. You're a pro once you start paying income tax. Interesting. Froggy says, in my opinion, you're a professional when you consider what you do a job. I think that goes in line with kind of what James is saying. You're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it in color schemes you may not like, that kind of thing. Yeah, interesting. We're already seeing such a wide variety of input, and that's exactly why we wanted to talk about this topic, right?
So, to get back to the, some people think you're only a pro if you paint armies. Um, I really disagree with that. I mean, look at Zambies. She doesn't paint armies. She paints individual miniatures, and she does it like beautifully. For me, a professional miniature painter is more about um, quality of work over making money and the quantity. Um, in my opinion, several people here are professional miniature painters. Like, I do not consider myself a professional miniature painter. I don't think I'll ever be a professional miniature painter. If our hobby was the life cycle of a frog, I would be a tadpole that has slightly stunted legs in my development currently. Um, so for me, a professional miniature painter is someone who has a style that is recognizable. You know, if you see it, it's a James Wample, or it's a Black Skull or a Quandam or a Runic or Blades, right? Like their individual style, and also uh, I would also put the caveat that um, to be a professional miniature painter, you kind of have to help out the community as well. Or maybe it's just one of the things that miniature painters tend to do is pass along their knowledge.
Oh, there's a whole nother topic in there. Helping out the community and makes you more of a professional. That's, gosh, we're really peeling away layers at this topic, aren't we?
This is why I pitched it, because I was like, it was a shower thought, and then I realized, oh, there's more to it.
I mean,
Um,
you can peel. We're peeling so many different layers here. Everything from, okay, painting armies, getting money, uh, being part of the community, giving back to your community. Let's see, what else has been, how about award winning? You could not do any of those things and win awards.
Starting a stamping company to help out people. Rent.
I would say that is a professional activity, but I do not think it's what makes a person a professional, because I will definitely say that I see the lovely Brent as somebody who has been a professional for a very long time, much long before the painting stamps. But that's just my own opinion.
And I agree too. I just because you're, award winning, some people who do win the award and things, they don't generally take commissions, some of them, and sometimes they work from one competition to the next. So I would have to say I sort of agree with Runic. I don't believe that technically makes you a professional.
But that goes into the definition of professional. Is professional just how good you paint, or does professional have some other part to it? And based on what you just said, I would say that would be true.
Well, I think the question isn't what is a professional, it is what do you define as a professional, because we could always pull out the dictionary book and go with that, but I think that's kind of an irrelevant thing, because everybody knows, oh, by definition, if I make money doing this, it's what makes me a professional. But it's more the interpersonal of, do I believe I'm a professional? When do I say that I am a professional?
It can go a little bit pear-shaped for folks that, okay, they paint miniatures for a living. And this really, I first noticed this with the Reaper paint contest. And the simplest way to put it is people, they equated the color of their trophy or award with the amount of dollars they could charge for a miniature. And that still actually is the case. Where people, they're doing these competitions and they say, geez, if I only win a bronze or a silver, I'll have to charge less for a miniature. And they get really, really stressed out about contests because to them it is tied into, or at least that's how they see it. They're tied into what they can charge for something. Now maybe they've had conversations with people. They say, well, yeah, you only got a bronze this year at Reaper. I'm not sure I'm giving you $100 for that. Maybe I give you 85. And I guess that happens. And boy, people
That's
really get.
actual conversations. Wow.
Yes,
Oh
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. In fact, back in the day when I went to Gen Con back in Milwaukee, Golden Demon was a whole different animal back then, with their different levels and the things like that. But one of the things that made me very angry in the beginning was they used to have like a novice division, and then they had which is where anybody could kind of come in, and they had several different categories under that novice division, and that was so that the general public could come in and and do whatever they wanted to do. There was an advanced division, but you could only get to the advanced division when you won 2 novice division awards. You had to place, not necessarily win. Then when you got to advanced, you were held up for a long time in there before you got into what was like their expert or whatever they used to call that thing. That it was like a master class or something like that. You had to have 2 or 3 first placements, and you had to have this or that, and you had to have entered something in one in each category before you moved on. Then they moved into what was considered like a total master division. And all the master division really was that they were scouting for people in that division who might be eligible to become Games Workshop painters. And then they had a professional division, which was simply their own painters competing against each other. And unless you were on their payroll, you could not enter that division. And they called it a pro painter division. And they said that anybody that was master or above, they considered them to be professionals, but everybody else below them was not. We were all just hobbyists. We were, casual painters. Um, so for a long time, that kind of stigma, that idea of I've won this award, I've placed in this, I've made my way up the chain. They equated themselves moving up the chain in that competition as being what they could charge for things or how they could do things, and that was their claim. And you have to remember, this is all before the internet. So people thrived on getting a mention in Red Dwarf or getting a mention in Dragon Magazine or any of the other periodicals at the time, or at Gen Con being noticed or known or end up in an artist alley booth. They all fought for that kind of thing. And at that time also, those master painters shared nothing like these people like we are today. They shared none of their tricks, none of their things. They did not teach because everything was based on their livelihood. And I think things have changed so much that that kind of tier is, like James said, it was live or die. But I don't think that really truly defines what a professional painter is.
ROS says, I will call myself a professional when I make more money than I spend on supplies after taxes. Go ahead, James.
There's even folks with years ago at Adepticon when they had the crystal brush, there was a situation where there was a special guest from Europe there that was selling instructional DVDs in the dealer's room. Now remember, the dealer's room back then was infinite. It was like the size of the Asmodee booth here at this current Adepticon. It was very different not that many Adepticons ago, but that person somehow managed to win the crystal brush while they were selling DVDs in the dealer's room at the Cool Mini or Not booth. And it was discovered that the miniature was half painted, and because it was a voting thing online, they just photographed the parts that were painted and didn't reveal that half of it was primer. And again, that I've seen that people, they feel like, okay, I can maybe get more patrons if I can say I won this award, which again, that's all fine. It's just the stress levels. Just can you imagine? You literally think this is what I can charge based on if I win or don't win this contest. That is way more stress than I want to put on something like that.
I never
I
even
was just
thought
doing
of that aspect.
the stuff here because I wanted to do creature caster figs, and if I made it as part of a tutorial or painted it on stream, well then I could just do it, right? The dwarves, I was going to paint them anyway, and the basing thing was a tutorial that I was going to make because I was basing a bunch of Moria stuff, which had the exact same scheme. So for me, it was just kind of okay, this is kind of just part of my regular stuff. But there are folks that really, I mean, I feel bad for them because they just get really stressed out.
Yeah. Froggy said he got a bit of tea. I heard at Adepticon was a streamer worried that if they didn't get a trophy, everyone would stop watching their Twitch.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are people that actually kind of maybe they didn't even think it consciously, but they might have thought I have to do well here, because people will say, well, okay, are you really any good?
And I
Tough
think
even
there's
then.
an additional layer to that too, where now we're talking about what makes us feel like we're no longer a professional when we do. Is it the fact that we don't continue to win or continue to achieve?
And two, there's people that will say, well, geez, you won this years ago. That's when it was easy. I've
Yep,
had people
I've heard
say
that.
that.
Well, yeah. My wife
Really?
and
Really? I
had
saw
that.
I saw some very ugly Golden Demons back in the Milwaukee days. I mean, really bad Milwaukee, where people who lost went nuts and things were really bad. It's not easy. It was never easy, and unfortunately, that competition, except for the D&D painting competition from TSR, was the only game in town at the time. And even the TSR competition was extremely stiff. So yeah, I don't think that no, that none of that was easy back then. It really wasn't.
My wife and I had a similar discussion about that, because she was watching some YouTube videos and like an old video of figure skating came up from like back in the 50s, right? And it was laughable compared to now. And they were Olympic skaters. And it was like, my goodness. Would any of those people be considered Olympic skaters today?
So
Probably.
Ed, was that the one where they used to have a thing, one of the competitions for every skater where they had to do those technical challenges with the figure eight?
Yeah. Yeah, like
They would do
that.
like 10 minutes they'd have to do, and then the judges would go from there, and that was like a qualifier. Yeah, that was silly.
It was laughable watching it because it was like, my goodness, that person doing that jump doesn't look anything like a figure skater doing that jump. And I think you could apply that to today. It's like the techniques and the learning and stuff has grown so much. And the paints, I don't know if it's the paints, if it's the techniques, maybe information becoming more widely available because of the internet. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. It's like, do you not become a professional at some point, or I don't know. You know, maybe we go around
Here's my
robin.
other thing then. I'd ask like Runic and some other people. You know, we see that thing on eBay all the time where somebody's either selling miniatures or doing whatever on eBay, and they always say professionally painted. Now, we all know that generally that's a scam, but in some cases, how do you know they aren't really actual professional painters? Like if Runic was going to go out and do something, or James was going to start selling on eBay, unless you knew of their work and those people, you have no idea. So does that professionally painted really hurt everything, or or is it just always a scam that they're trying to say it's professionally painted?
Welcome in, Freely. I would like to ask Freely about her origin story.
Hey,
I second this.
sure. Sorry, big stretch after dinner. My origin story for mini painting or for art in general?
Any painting?
Mini painting. Okay. For mini painting, I think I started, let's see, around 2019 or 2020. It was in the pandemic. So shortly after getting diagnosed with Crohn's disease, I got really bad art block. Didn't create for like a whole year, which is a long time for me, being a artist of the 2D variety back then. um, and then I saw a Black Friday deal for a 3D printer, and I'm like, okay, well, I could still technically make something, even though it'd be like low effort. Um, and I was playing D&D at the time, so I thought having figures for the table would be fun, and then that led into me wanting to paint the figures for tabletop, and and the rest is history. So fairly new to mini painting in general, but making art my whole life.
And would you consider yourself a professional miniature painter?
That one, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that because, in my opinion, I think professional goes back to the word profession, which is job. So if you're a professional, in my opinion, you're making money off of the thing that you're saying you're a professional for. And while I technically am making money doing art, it's mostly 2D art. So I don't know if I would call myself a professional mini painter because I don't do commissions for that. But I have made money off of it through competitions. So I don't know. I've got mixed feelings about the
I was
word
gonna say
professional.
you're doing this like yes, no, yes, no,
Yeah,
no.
I'm very indecisive, and the word profession to me, I don't know, just means making money off of.
Yeah, but if you're on Twitch, it is kind of a job. I mean, I just keeping up
True.
with a 3 stream a week schedule is work.
True.
It's work.
Yeah,
You know,
I wouldn't say
no
it's
doubt.
enough money to make a living off of.
No.
Not nearly.
Well,
But
does
technically is making money.
making money mean making a living wage off it? Or does
No.
making money just mean you're making money? Does it make you professional?
That's true. That's true.
I don't think it's the amount of money you make. I think it's the fact that somebody approaches you and says, paint something for me and I will pay you, or you're streaming. Well, I can't say that I was a professional when I started streaming because I wasn't. I was streaming to go on the journey. Do I consider myself a professional now? I mean, I've been asked enough to do commissions and stuff enough that I have made some money at it, but certainly not enough to retire yet. So, interesting.
Yeah, that was my idea. I would consider myself a profession if I could show my wife my Twitch earnings and she wouldn't scoff.
My conclusion is that mini painting is a pyramid scheme.
You know, I think I've made enough money to retire as a miniature painter as long as my retirement lasts about 36 seconds.
I think in the last year, I think I made over $1,000 in just commissions and different things that have gone, related to mini painting. So, I mean, no, I have a regular job and it takes time and whatever, but I've made money. I don't think that, I'm not sure you really have to make a living at it to become a professional. I think you can still make money, gain awards or do a claim, get some things and build a portfolio and be a reputation and consider yourself a professional, especially especially if you instruct others or you expand yourself a little bit. I don't think it has to be a 9 to 5 kind of thing before you can be called a professional.
Black Skull keeps bringing up instructing others or sharing knowledge, that sort of thing. And it just keeps coming back to a question I wanted to ask is how much does being an influencer affect whether or not you're a professional? I mean, James, definitely professional, definitely influencer. You look at Brent from Goovertown Hobbies, got a YouTube channel, definitely an influencer, definitely a professional. How much does being an influencer affect your perception of being a professional?
I think today in today's market, I think it has a lot to do, a lot.
There's another aspect of being a professional.
Oh, Froggy PhD said, I think anyone with a platform is an influencer. Yeah.
It can really be
Dear
a big
Lord,
deal.
somebody stop painting. Stop painting. We get then. Somebody turn him off. Turn him off.
Like,
Oh, I'm an influencer, not for mini painting, but for trolling.
Interesting. It's really interesting seeing where this conversation keeps going. It's like so many different thoughts on this. Runic
Hey,
said,
hey, hey,
that was the reason. That was the reason for the discussion to begin with, and it's obvious. There's a lot of thoughts on this.
Well, and Quantum brings up a really good point. A lot of things have changed. So you do have content influencers, you do have Twitch, you do have those things. So, has things changed? I think the definition the goalpost has to be, the change had to be moved a little bit because of the added idea of social medias and the things of that nature. But prior to that, what made you a professional?
I also want to point out that what you define as a professional or yourself being a professional can change, obviously. So, for example, you could believe that, oh, once I get my first trophy in Golden Demon, that's when I'm going to call myself a professional. Well, let's say you get that trophy and you're like, well, I guess that's yeah, I'm a professional now. Okay. But then you start your own business, for example, and you start doing, your own studio, and you buy your own studio and you move all your art supplies into that, and you go to that and you do that like your own. Okay, now I'm a professional because I own a studio that I work out of. And that that idea that it can change, I think, is important too to consider, because a weird segue I just thought of is like, when we're kids, we make believe all these little stories, and it's like, I'm a firefighter, I'm this, that, and the other. We know you're not, kid. Like, you're not a firefighter, but you believed you were, you know.
The other weird thing that's starting to happen with that influencer side of things is if a company gives you free stuff, are you an influencer? Because I see the classic example. It's a YouTube channel that I used to watch all the time. I really loved it. It is actually what got me into Middle Earth strategy battle game again. And pretty much all of his thumbnails now consist of an image of him with a mound, like a 4 foot high mound of GW sprues, and it says GW just sent me $8,000 worth of plastic. I mean, literally every other thumbnail on his YouTube channel. I understand algorithms. People will click on that. Just sometimes they'll just be angry and click on that. But I see this a lot. It even started happening years ago where people would kind of say, "Hey Reaper, would you, give me your new set of 400 paints or something like that, and I'll talk about it." Well, then, and I would talk to the folks from Reaper. They say, "Yeah, we'd send it to this person." And next thing you know, there's a picture of them smiling with some AK Interactive paints. We never see them do anything with the Reaper paints, and that is kind of the weird part of the influencer thing is, are people doing it because they kind of like the free stuff? And if you get free stuff, are people going to believe what you say about the free stuff? I mean, the stuff I get, I got to buy it like everybody else. If I hate it, well, then I'm out the money. And what I want to do is let as many people know that it's no good so they don't have to waste their money on it.
Well, that brings up a good point too, because I know like Ninjon has said several times, he's had stuff on his YouTube channel and said, it was sponsored, but he makes it perfectly clear to whoever sends him the stuff that he's going to give it he's going to run it through the paces, he's going to give it thing. And then I know Brent and the guys from Groovertown and the guys from Paint Bravely, they've told stories on the podcast about how 3D printer companies will try to send them stuff and really want to push them to do this. And, they got other things to do, and sometimes they don't do it. And then the company pressures them. But they also want to, I think they really are striving to get a good review. The problem is that I don't think they understand that a lot of the people in the community, at least the reputable ones in the community, want to give it an honest to goodness test, because if they have to endorse it and then they do and it turns out to be junk, we're all going to be mad. So I think that plays into it too, is whether how objective you are when you're getting this stuff, and with all the free stuff, are you being influenced? Like, I mean, I know a couple of YouTube channels where, like James, they would keep getting bunches of stuff. I think they just kind of technically, if you want to call it that, kind of subcontract for Games Workshop now. They're kind of like a spokesman. They're kind of moving in that direction, and they've lost that freedom, I think. But I know Ninjon is very, very particular. Send it to me, fine, but I'm gonna run it through its paces, and I'm gonna say yay or nay.
Right.
And it has gotten him into trouble because some people were expecting, him to get on there and, tout him up.
Right. Being a spokesman doesn't, I don't think, makes you a professional.
Are you talking about the story where Brent got a woman named Gail disappeared from a company because he didn't give them a 1 minute long ad?
Yep, that's the one. Yep, that's the one.
I love that story.
And you know what's funny about that? A couple months later, somebody else came after Jay for the same thing, and they sent the same kind of texts and things about basically that they were going to get fired, and there was all this crap and drama that went on, and so I think he just said, you know what, I'm just not doing it. I'm just not going to do it, and so yeah, so I mean there are pressure tactics and things like that, but yeah, I love that story too. It makes me laugh that they do that. So, I mean, I'm with James. I know there's some people that get some things once in a while, but I usually tend to watch and see. They say, "Look, I'm going to give you the lowdown," because paints I know has been a big thing. A lot of the YouTube streams I watch when new paint lines come out, sometimes they've been given certain colors and they do things. But I've watched I know Lila Met has had those kind of things. But she's put them through the paces, and she's had her pros and she's had her cons, and that's the way things are. So I know it. You don't usually endorse very much. I think the last thing I think you really endorsed wasn't it the go bag from Foxbite?
Yeah, things that I've used or things that I've had a hand in actually, helping with, where I've been sent a sample that says, "Hey, give me ideas. Is this good? Is this a good product? This isn't a good product?" And then it goes back, and then it gets improved, and it comes back again, and they're like, "Now what do you think about it?" Those kind of things that, where I have that one-on-one interaction with the creator. Those are the things that I find very, very it's great to be part of the process, like the Foxbite brushes that I use. Sure, I promote them because I got to sample them and test them and all that kind of stuff, so that was kind of cool.
But they've been good brushes, because I've been doing the testing,
and they've been awesome brushes. They've been awesome.
Yeah,
brushes.
and I've given him feedback, and that's why he keeps sending me different things and stuff. But that's the point. They've been good brushes, because I put them I use them every day and things, and I've pushed them to the brink of things. And yeah, no, I agree.
But I try to pay for most everything. I mean, really, that's part of being part of the community too, and helping out other creators and just and doing that kind of thing. But as far as the funny thing is, based on our topic here about being a pro, is we've already determined that social media has had a big impact on that, and we're not quite sure what yet. I mean, it's you can be a part of social media but not be a pro. It can help you grow to be a pro. It's social media. That's interesting. Brett said a couple things here. I can't call myself a box art painter or a commission painter, but my profession these days is centered around miniature painting. There's no doubt that Brent is a professional, because he does it all day, every day, and it's us people who have other jobs and do it kind of as a hobby, but we've kind of either improved to a certain point, been asked to paint miniatures for money, or have, gosh, I mean, we've talked about awards, we've talked about money, we've talked about influencing. There's no doubt this topic is very muddied. No doubt.
The social media stuff is a job in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would agree. I think that being a professional doesn't. I wouldn't say that your social media status, how many followers you have, or how much of an influence you are, determines that you're a professional painter. Because let's be honest, anybody who's scrolled on any type of reel on any social media website has seen those silly videos where it's like that person has hundreds of thousands of likes, and it was just them opening their fridge funnily, and it was just a silly sound, like things like that. If we're constituting that as a professional, I need to reevaluate my lifestyle. But what I will say is like another kind of side thought with the whole social media being its own profession, but just using that as a platform for yourself. Um, I think that's an avenue for being a professional where if you are somebody who's never used social media before ever and you do make a living off of painting, let's say your local game shop and you go there and you paint and you're not using any technology to network other than your cell phone number. You just give people your cell phone number, your business card, old or a pen and paper, and that's how you make a living. That could be defined as a professional, and they had no use in any type of social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Welcome in, Raiders. Tonight's topic for the Council of Miniature Painters is professional miniature painting. You know, do you consider yourself? Have we really asked that question of all of us yet? Do we consider ourselves professional miniature painters? Runic, do you consider yourself a professional miniature painter?
I consider myself on the journey to be a professional miniature painter. I would not consider myself a professional.
And when in your mind do you cross that threshold?
I don't think I will ever cross that threshold because for me, and I kind of been leaving this out, is I define myself as a professional when I am satisfied with my work, and I think that's when I will stop doing it because then I won't be inspired anymore. So I don't think I'll ever be a professional by my own definition.
Interesting. So your ultimate definition is it's your work. Not just part, it's not part of something you do. It is what you do.
Exactly. I mean, another thing I've myself considered like an introspective thing is like when I get old and kick the bucket, and there are all these years that go by, and people who know me who still can share stories about me, would they consider me a professional painter at that point in time? And it kind of got me to this thought of where it's like, by that point in time, maybe that's when I would consider myself a professional, was when it's worth talking about by other people after that work is done. Because you can take the reason why I got on this subject was because I'm doing something for school and I'm taking all these old art pieces that people have done and I'm making a video of it. And, you know, I'm seeing all these old like Greek artists and stuff like that. And those are things that are still talked to about this day, is just how well they did, you know, these marble statues and how they like what they used to do things. And um, there's museums and stuff for that. Like, does that make that person a professional? And that's where I kind of introspect and go, well, I don't think I'm ever going to get a museum. I don't think that's something I'm going to think of, you know, 50 years, the Runic Racoon Saloon Museum. I don't know about that. But self-introspective wise, I think if my friends and the people in my life that take the skills that I've learned and I've given to them and taken all those things, I think that's where I'd be like, I'm a professional at that point. But for me in particular, me separate myself, I don't think I'd ever feel like I'm a professional.
Okay. Who else? Now we know James, we know you're a professional miniature painter. When do you think you became a professional miniature painter? What was the threshold that you crossed to be a professional miniature painter in your mind?
Probably became a professional miniature painter when I was 13. I did my first art show in downtown Chicago. As pretty much from that day forward, art was basically my job. So the miniature painting, to me, it's seamless. There is no difference between miniature painting, between the 2D, and you can see I'm getting back into the 2D stuff now, which is really fun. To me, innovation is what matters. I don't even think about the miniature painting. I just think about innovation, where it's, you know, the crazy stuff I'm doing with the FDM prints. Uh, that I think I told you about the new technique that I actually, out of desperation, engineered, where I'm gonna be able to sculpt, prime, and paint simultaneously. Where's my marble paste? Here we go. So this right here, this modeling paste stuff, I discovered out of desperation that if you actually tint this with some kind of ink or whatever to pretty much the color that you want, you can not only gap fill this stuff, but you've then primed it and it's also painted. So my new test for this, actually I did it on one of my videos. I had to fill a gap with, it's like one of these big old miniatures, like this. So see right there, there's all these gaps. Well, instead of me putting green stuff and all this other junk in there, what if I was to just actually mix browns and gray inks with this stuff here and actually paint that in there? Now this would be getting primed, sculpted, and even partially painted. My goal was to take my, remember those trees I made out of the tree supports? Well, I used this to sculpt the bark on them, right? But it looked like bark. It was great. It took a ton of primer to turn these white trees. Everything was the white tree of Gondor. I had an entire forest of the white tree of Gondor. Said, well, they need to be a little bit not white. And it took so much primer, so much time. I thought, wait a minute. What if here we go. What if I mix some of this, some brown, whatever, and grays and this, do the sculpting, it's also primed, and if I actually make enough different colors of this, am I actually painting it too? And that, not just the time savings alone and material savings, that to me, that's what interests me, is this kind of innovation where it literally stems from, okay, I have exactly 10 minutes to film this gap filling, priming, and painting segment. Using this with some, I think I used fluorescent green ink or something like that. It worked out so well, it only took 7 minutes and 30 seconds. What if I was doing it the old way with green stuff and a sculpting tool and primer and paint, it would have taken hours. I'd still be doing it 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later. So that this to me, this kind of innovation that is born from, I'm doing so many different things, and you think, okay, what about, wait a minute, what if I did it this way? That's what inspires me, is trying to find some new way, something that either I haven't thought of before. Believe me, I wish I had thought of this stupid thing, I don't know, about 20 years ago. It would have saved me a whole bunch of time on all the dioramas and terrain I've done since, what, 23 years now? No, 25 years actually. So it's the only, hey, better late than never, right?
So let me. There's a part that you said that 2D, 3D. Um, I feel like the generalized term of professional for you is I'm a professional artist. Whether it's 2D or 3D is irrelevant for me.
Yeah, because yeah, let's break out one of these paintings here. Let's use this one. And let's do our film noir. Okay, so contrast. How is contrast? Actually, let me zoom out a little bit more here. How is contrast developed on this? Well, yeah, okay, you got light and you got dark. Take the color away though. This is one of those things. Well, so it's edges here, right? Where are the sharpest edges on it? Right here. That's why your eye is drawn to this. These are all soft edges for the most part out here. So your eye is literally drawn over here. Well, that's the same thing that makes something like, I don't know, a sword, right? That edge contrast on that sword more interesting. Also, too, here, let's take a little look-see at this. Oh, that just looks like a normal piece, right? Just, there's no source lighting here. Well, wait a minute. Maybe there is. Actually, yeah, there is. And this idea of this saturation and color temperature contrast, that took me years to understand at the academy. If somebody would have come up with this stupid little tool of just taking this and going, oh yeah, zoink, I would have said, oh, that's what you're talking about. So to me, that's where a 2D art principle that was so freaking hard for me to understand in art school, every stream, that's why it's one of my chat point rewards, and people know that like every 2 or 3 hours there should be a film noir, so that we kind of show the folks in the chat that there is more to contrast than just light versus dark. And man, that was the hardest thing for me to understand in art school, and all I was doing was 2D art. If you can understand it for 2D, it will directly translate to this, because I mean, colors are basically the same here, right? You've got cooler colors recede to the background. These warmer colors come to the foreground. We got kind of the same deal going on here, right? These warmer colors coming right at you. Cooler colors, those are going to recede just a little bit. I don't want it to be all technical, right? I think that's, people see 2D art and they think it's this whole conglomeration of technical stuff. It's like, well, it's really kind of simple stuff. It's just how can you make it simple? It's like 3D printing. 3D printers were, I couldn't understand those. I still look at that stupid bamboo slicer and I only understand about 3% of it. I wish I understood more. The other 97% is going to be a massive struggle to dig into, and maybe lots of Google searches too. But if I can make it simpler for folks, and again, kind of like you were saying, tie in this 2D and the 3D together, maybe it just makes it less imposing, less scary. Right? I mean, we got this here. This is all about muted tones. I mean, there is nothing saturated on here. If we were to take that same example and go zoink to this vehicle versus say, oh, I don't know, this, well, they're both just shaded. There is no bright, shiny colors. This has fluorescent paint on it. This, not quite so much. Here, let's do reverse our film noir here. Bam, look at the difference in intensity, but you take away the colors, you take away all this intense green and the blues and everything, no different than this. And final tie-in here, so I don't want to take too long. One of the things we had to do in watercolor class was the first 3 months out of a 10-month year, we had one color. It was called brown, and we did value studies. And this is a perfectly legit thing to do, whether it's oils or acrylics. Maybe just do something like this so you don't have to struggle with, okay, what color do I put where? Maybe just do this and figure out where values go. Uh, I, I was just doing a baking project, which I'd never done before. And because I chose very simple steps, when things went sideways, I could kind of work my way through it. If I had tried doing the whole project that I originally envisioned, it would have been a disaster. So maybe kind of, simplify things. Don't start out with this. Maybe paint the same miniature. Just paint it with one light color, one dark color. Again, whether it's oils, whether it's acrylics, doesn't really matter. Just again, try to simplify things, right? To set yourself up for easier success. I guess that's where I'm going with that. Sorry, that got so long-winded there. I know we need to go pretty soon.
Well, I was just going to ask. Man, this 2 hours has just flown by. I mean, we can keep going if you guys want to keep going.
No problem for me. I got plenty of work to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit here for the next 5 hours doing this.
So
I have probably until 9:30 Eastern. I actually have family here that are visiting, and
okay, so we got
I'll
about
spend some
another
time with them afterwards.
half hour. That's great. So why don't we do that? So let's see. We were talking about who considers themselves a pro painter. I think Git already kind of joined in on that. Let's see who else is.
Yeah, I am a filthy casual, and the reason for that is I am not naturally talented, and my current skill level is nowhere near what I would consider being a professional.
Right.
So before we move on,
Yeah.
just because I want to ask, do you believe that what defines a professional is your skill at doing said thing, not how much you have done it?
I think that skill level is part of it. Um, Once again, going back to the quality of the body of work, right? There are people who make a living doing the same doing the same type of drawing, the same style over and over again, right? And um, they make a living, but I wouldn't really consider them a professional. And sorry if anyone out there is someone like that. I'm not trying to insult anyone, but I think a professional has like a good grasp on uh, multiple aspects of their field. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that because that's interesting.
It is
'Cause I had
interesting.
the same thoughts.
Yeah, I was just putting all this together is really interesting to put this together in the brain, because you could probably be technically considered a professional and not have the skill. There have been crazier things on the internet. There have, you see people doing things that it doesn't look like they're qualified to do, but they do it for a living, which makes them a professional. But yet
Or
they
middle
don't
management.
have
I mean,
the
yeah.
skill.
Have you went into public lately and seen anybody working on anything? There's a lot of people that don't know how to do their job, but they're considered a professional.
Exactly. Which, and I think Git brings up a good point. It's like, gosh, what, which is why we're having the topic. What what does it take to be a professional? And I think we're really coming to the conclusion that it's multiple things really to be a real professional. Is you've got to have the skills. You have to make maybe even a certain percentage of your living doing it, because a lot of people have multiple jobs. Do you just have to have one job to be considered a professional miniature painter, or can you have two jobs? And be
I also
You
think
also have to have the willpower.
Go ahead, Freely.
I think that art is kind of a hard thing to judge for skill level since it's so unique to each person what they consider to be art.
So
Um,
subjection, like a
subjective,
person's
yeah.
subjective thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just gonna throw that in there.
Yeah, no, it's this is the reason for the topic, because it's like you go down this rabbit hole of
Mm-hmm.
so many different things, and now it's even more complex nowadays because you've got things like social media, contests, all those types of things that even muddy the water further. Hmm, okay. Black Skull, what do you think? Do you consider yourself a professional miniature painter?
I consider myself semi-professional in a sense because of past portfolio and past work. I've had some commissions here and there. I believe skill levels have gone up and down, and now I'm kind of in my very nice place and stuff, and the accolades. But I think I only consider myself a semi-professional one because I mean I'm only on a very limited social media type thing, but I have been able to there has been some influencers and there has been some things I haven't let myself stagnate. I've worked with innovation. Even my style has evolved immensely in the past 3 years, and I just keep working on different things and trying different things. But I try, at least on this go around, um, I consider myself maybe more of a miniature artist more than an actual like professional, because I think professional, in my terms, feels like either the job or that you're doing something and you're kind of mechanically processing things and you're doing whatever, but through teaching or helping others and my style and breaking some rules and just kind of going out my thing, and just doing what I do and having successes and having failure. I consider myself more an artist, a miniature artist, than a like professional, but I would say I would probably be semi-professional if you want to take any kind of credentials in there. So that's my take.
Hmm. I'm gonna agree with Black Skull. I would, gosh, I would consider myself a semi-professional. One, it's not my primary job, but I do have to spend time preparing. Um, I do have work that I do for people, so it's like, because it does take work. It is like I consider streaming, gosh, I don't want to call it a job. It hasn't gotten to the point where it's a job. But I could see for some people like Brush for Hire, maybe could be considered a streaming is a job. But he's definitely a professional anyway by any definition. Um, but I don't know. It's like, it's given me a lot of food for thought, and the best I could come up with is semi-professional, because it's not my full-time gig. But when something is a big part of your life and you're doing it, you could add that community piece into it. You can add, I feel my skill level is there, but it's not quite all the way there because I'm not doing it full time all day every day. So I think semi professional is kind of the way to say it.
Mininger has a comment, Ed.
Yeah. Black Skull is a god among painters. How dare one compare him to? No, which one?
The don't get me wrong. I was here when Mr. Big Time Streamer here just got started, and boy did he grow! Fucking amazing work. Pardon my French. Jealous as heck because I'm still at step 1, i.e., opening the bottle.
Well, anything you spend time doing, you're gonna get. Well, is that always true? Anything you spend time doing, you're gonna get better at it, which is the reason I started streaming to begin with. The reason I started streaming was to keep doing it.
I think it's anytime you spend time doing something intentionally, you get better at it.
Ooh, that's a good point. That's a really good point to put that word into it, intentionally. Because if you don't do it intentionally, I know people who drive a lot and they don't get better.
Oh, jeez.
They must not be doing it intentionally, I don't know. I'm kidding. Let's see.
Oh man, I have my license. I'm a professional. Gets in 3 accidents. I'm still a professional.
Right, exactly. Froggy says, to be fair, sometimes opening the paint results in an explosion. It's a skill in itself. We need professional paint, not paint pot openers. The trick is to twist the cap counterclockwise. Dig Batty says, I would define a professional artist as someone who's actively pursuing their craft as a form of full-time income, who has a passion for creating. Whereas an artist is one who has the passion but does not intentionally try to make a living off of it. I think semi-pro kind of fits into that definition as well. You're not making a full-time income off of it, but you have the passion, you have the skill, you're trying to make a go of being a better painter and continuing to improve. Who else wants to chime in?
I'll do it. Let's see. Let's just walk down through the list of some of the things that we've talked about being a professional. Have I received remuneration for painting minis? Yes. Have I entered and won contests? Yes. Online. Have I, let's see, have I had a platform? Yes. Does that make me a professional? Heck no. But as my mother once told me, I can do anything I set my mind to. So maybe sort of semi-professional, on the cusp.
On the cusp, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I retired tomorrow and started streaming more and painting more, it would be my full-time thing.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I've even had stuff displayed in a hobby shop that I painted. So
Yes,
but that
Mininger,
still doesn't make me a
Quantum is a
professional.
person and not just an AI program.
We're not sure
Oh,
about that, though.
Minger, when I start streaming again, I'll send you a message.
Very interesting. Good topic, Runic. This is really, gosh, the food for thought is just pouring.
Well, if there's
Right.
anything I can say bluntly about myself that I do, I definitely give people reasons to think. They might not be thinking about, smart things like, wow, what a weirdo, wear an eyeliner and a weird hat like that, or dressed up like a Ren Fair person. But sometimes I give them good things to think about, like, am I a professional or not?
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting topic. Let's see who else we
I
got.
like to say in closing, I think what also makes you professional is also an attitude. And if I was going to call myself other than semi-professional, one of the things on the professional side that I like to do is I always said that I'd always like to leave this hobby better than when I found it.
Yep.
So, like, you hold yourself to a professional standard.
I do.
And that leads
But
into
that
what
doesn't mean that and that's where the semi-professional comes in,
Yeah,
is I do
exactly.
hold myself to certain standards that would be more of a professional standard. Yet at the same time, I don't box myself in or stifle my creativity or a direction to go. Like the best example I can give is I don't know why in the world I ever went to college for my art degree, whether graphic design or fine art, simply because I was much more adventurous. I took risks. I learned rules. I read things. I did things. I took classes. I did everything I could and took the risk. I got into college, and somehow they drove, the art history in you, and they drove all this stuff in you and all these techniques, and you were graded, which I find really strange anyway. And the point is, when I got out, yes, my graphic design side, I was ready to become, to work in that field and whatever. But for my creative side, they had put so much crap in my head, and that this was wrong, or this was the way that was right, and this is what you do, that it took a long time for me to get past that point and go back to being an artist. And I think that's where you have to decide, are you going to be a professional and kind of play the game and do the things that are there that people expect of you, or are you going to be a professional or semi-professional on your own terms? Maybe that's what it is um, you can be a professional, but then you can stagnate and you can just play the game and you can get your commission and you can do all these things to make you a professional, but you never advance or you never move and you never get out of that certain area. Where as a semi-professional, you have way to evolve, I think is the best word.
Mazeblitz
It sounds like you're
says semi-pro, you've got skills. Maybe you get paid sometimes, or you're almost there. You're not full-time or fully consistent yet, but you're building. That's a well thought out thought.
And be honest, if you're moving into professional in an attitude, basically you are your own entrepreneur. You are advancing yourself or promoting yourself in such a way with your technical skills and how you work with things. So that in of itself could make you a professional. Is just how you are not only promoting yourself, but how you are advancing your style of technique. Like with James, I mean, his style and what he does and things has become it's like a brand, a trademark. And I hate to use the word brand because that becomes an ugly subject, but even my stuff to this point, I keep moving and I keep evolving, but at the same time, you can kind of know that it's my stuff, it's my thing, it's what I do, and you know that sometimes I don't follow. You can tell I don't follow those rules, or I don't think. And Runic, I've seen you do the same thing, not just in your painting, but I've seen some of your Ren Fair. You don't play. You play more of an artist game than you do a professional game.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment because I pride myself in trying to be a little bit unique.
And I think the other part that goes to this, are you a pro or not, is unfortunately it does come down to self promotion. And you promote yourself to people who have never seen you before, because that local game store ain't going to get you very far. If you're really looking to do this for a serious, this is going to pay some serious bills, then that ugly thing of self promotion comes in. And well, it's weird because social media, it's almost more difficult today to promote yourself unless you're doing, say, something like Twitch all the time, because a lot of Facebook groups, what they've done is they don't let you post links to anything. Basically, their attitude is, how dare you sully our Facebook page with your crass salesmanship. It's like, I just would like a bit of gruel, that's all. But they like, no advertising, but it's a link to a free YouTube video. No, that's advertising. You know how many pages I've been banned from just because I posted a link to the Twitch channel?
Yeah.
That's it. I posted it, no money, no money's changing hands or anything like that. They're like, you posted a link, you can't post that. Then they just ban you outright. And the people celebrate this. They say, yeah, get rid of that whatever. They use some choice words. or the mercenary whatever.
Well,
So
that's
I
something
feel sorry for folks.
that's something that can be a topic for another Council of Mini Painters is what makes the painting community different from other communities, because I've personally found that, especially with Twitch, my limited exposure to Twitch is where you have these variety streamers that are like variety gamers versus us painters. If we're having someone come into our stream that is a fellow painter, we want to see their work. We want to promote them. We want to celebrate them, right? That happens all the time. But when you have those variety streamers, they're like, don't you tell people that you stream. Don't you dare share that you're a streamer too, because you're going to try to take my audience. And that could be something too to talk about someday is
Yeah.
why is that different?
Yeah, I found that early on, but not as much more recently. But yeah, interesting. Wow, what great topic. Isadora said, love this topic, fun talk. Minger says, okay, who's back on topic, who's your favorite viewer and why is it Minger? Froggy says, posting your own content places does get looked at like that, even if you don't mean to be self-promotion type stuff. People take everything as that. Yeah, that's true. It's true.
There are a few people in our community that aren't good at self-promotion, but they have managers to help them out.
That's right. Painterly Git is an expert at promotion. Obviously, why Runic is here for the Council of Miniature Painters, and we have Zambies lined up for next month, and maybe even the next month another one that I can't believe he pulled off if it happens.
By the way, that's not promotion, Ed. Runic is here because there's apparently some kind of photographs I understood that Painterly has.
Oh yeah, Painterly has got the goods on everybody. That's why. Whether or not it's just his skill or blackmail, I'm not exactly sure. But
we'll see. The thing about Painterly is there's so many rumors. Oh gosh, there's so many rumors that have been brought by the Painterly, and the thing is, I just want to make sure they stay untrue.
That's
the last rumor I heard about Git was that he was actually the reincarnation of J. Edgar Hoover, and this is why he gets files on everybody.
And I look really good in a tutu while doing it.
All right, just thought this was how intimidating a figure is Painterly Git. So menacing.
I realized something that we didn't talk about. I don't think it was even brought up at all. You said about the figure is what Pele talked about how 2D versus 3D, but like, would you consider yourself a professional painter in? I'm thinking as I'm talking. I apologize. We talked about like you're not a professional unless you are painting armies for 40K that you're selling, right? You're Games Workshop painter. The type of painting that you do, like the style. Like I think we brought up we know that is Wapelius's work once we see it. We know that that's Falling Freely's work once we see it. Because I don't know about you guys, that NMM, that vibrant fluorescent NMM, I have dreams about that model. It's awkward. That's one of the things I'm like, that's a professional right there. But yeah, we never brought that up. Like, am I a professional once I paint this very highly detailed model, or am I a professional because I made a Reaper miniature? No offense to Reaper, but I made a Reaper sculpt look like a model I paid way too much money for.
Right.
So I find that interesting that wasn't brought up once.
Well, I definitely don't think armies has anything to do with it. In fact, I would say I've seen more people who paint armies not necessarily be at a professional level because they just want it for their tournament. They have to have a painted army for a tournament. So they want somebody to paint it for them, so anybody will paint it and do any kind of a quality work. That doesn't necessarily make them professional. I've seen some wonderful armies, though.
Big Batty has a question for our esteemed guest. will Runic create a new Pornhub category about non-metallic metal dreams?
Uh, I can't confirm or deny, but what I will say is there are talks.
Arta Michael says, here's a fun one. I was told I am not a professional illustrator because I teach. Goes back to the dumb concept of those who can't do teach. Interesting. So a whole nother aspect of if you're a teacher of it, are you a professional? I would hope that I was learning from a professional if they were a teacher. But...
And that's the thing too, is like anybody who teaches. Oh gosh, that's a hard thing to actually talk about because that makes me feel like I'm stepping on toes here. But like, have you ever had a teacher that you're like, this person isn't really as good as I thought, or this person I don't feel like should be teaching me, and not just in painting, just in general. I mean, I'm sure we've all been to public schools, but um, that's an interesting take though. Is like, let's say that you are somebody who wants to, because Ed, you and I have been talking about teaching at conventions and stuff. At what point, I would imagine, do the people who are asking us painters to teach, do they consider us a professional because they're asking us to teach? I would imagine so, because we're trying to give our knowledge to other people.
And I think that goes back to what Black Skull was saying about, and some other people were saying about semi-pro. I think you need to be a semi-pro or a pro to teach.
It gets even more complicated because are you a professional teacher? Because I've seen people that have no business teaching. They're fantastic painters and they have zero teaching skills. Because to teach, you have to self-analyze and you got to be able to tell people the why. The how is almost irrelevant. If you don't tell them the why, they'll never be able to figure out any kind of problems afterwards. That was always the questions we asked in school: is why did you use that material? Why did you put that there instead of over here? Why are you using that kind of brush? Why are you using contrast paints and not army paint or whatever? Why are you using the oils? I guess they ask the question all the time. So why oil paints? I have to be able to give them a reasonable 2 to 3 minute explanation of why I do the oils and what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and that whole idea of, oh, how can you, like those exercises, right? Those simpler exercises to start out. If you're going to be a teacher that says, well, everybody in the class clearly knows as much as I do, and they've been doing this as long as me, you have to be able to introduce them to concepts that they maybe never seen before or thought of before. And you got to get them to maybe understand those in 2 hours or less. Go for it.
Is that why we get those videos? It's like, I'll teach you how to be a professional slap chop painter in 15 minutes. It's all about the time.
Mm-hmm. Because there's many times people come out of a class and they'll say, I was in there for 3 hours. I'm not really sure how much I actually learned in there. Because
And again, though, I think that sometimes people end up going to those classes thinking, oh, I'll be able to, when I get out of there, I'll be able to paint or have the skills or something that just like that person. They want to, and it's copy, not emulate. Where a good teacher will say, please don't copy me, rote for rote. These are skills I'm giving you so that you can evolve and you can find your own way. Or if you want to get to my point, in practice. It's the ones where I think some people go into a course thinking that they're going to be able to do exactly like those people do, and then they become more frustrated by the fact that they really can't.
Well, it's kind of like the same misconception that people get with mental health, where they go to a therapist and they leave the session and are like, I don't feel better. Well, that's not their job. Their job is to give you tools so that you can be proactive to feel better. They're not going to fix you. And I think that's the kind of same thing with the idea of portraying knowledge in art is they are giving you the tools. This is how I did it. Now you need to implement it and understand the fundamentals. Like I'm giving you the foundation. You still have to build the house.
Well, and then just like with therapy, you have to go back several times. If you go for a week and say I don't feel any better and you drop it, well then you weren't paying attention or there was something wrong. Same thing happens where I've been in places where I've taught some people, just on the fly at a store or whatever, and they would come back like 1 or 2 weeks later and say, geez, this was just really hard. It was really intensive, and I just wasn't comfortable. So I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing before. Well, see, there it is I also think that they also think that they're magically the bulb's going to go on. So if you give them the tools, I think they automatically assume that when you have that skill or knowledge, you're automatically the light bulb's going to go on and everything's going to happen. I mean, there were a lot of things for a long time, like with the oils, that for a long time, things were just not clicking. They just weren't clicking. So I put it down and put it away, but I kept watching Jim and I kept watching Pun Expected, and I watched some other people do some stuff. I watched some other videos. And as time went on, it did evolve, and I took pieces of those things that I knew I could do. I dropped some of the other ones, and now I'm back. Now I'm working that. I don't think people know that there's practice and repetition that's going to come of it. And that's where I think people get a wrong idea of what a bad teacher is. No, a bad teacher is a bad teacher if they're not communicating that material well, and if they're pumping sunshine up your skirt and saying, you're going to be this master, like Ruben was saying, I'm going to teach you slap chop, and even something like slap chop takes a while to get a hang of. So I mean, I think your students also get an expectation sometimes that's unrealistic.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been an incredible discussion. Does anybody have any? We only got about 5 minutes here before Runic. Before we just had another half hour just blow by, which is just awesome. It shows how deep of a topic this is. 2.5 hours of discussion, and I don't what's funny about it, I don't think we came up with a really solid answer, which means it is such a deep topic. And it's but we came up with a lot of good things. Keep striving to be better, give back to your community, get involved in social media,
Don't teach.
keep learning, get to a point where you want to teach or can teach. It's just it's a lot of things. Keep growing. That's the reason I started streaming, not because I was a great mini painter. In fact, I was awful at the beginning. My first models were terrible, but it was a growth thing. It was a keep going, keep improving, keep giving back, getting involved in the community. All those types of things were what led got me down the road. So
I mean, I do owe you a huge thank you, because what got me into streaming was coming into your stream and going, should I get this a shot? And you're like, yes, absolutely. And I was like, okay, that's all I needed. Then I started streaming. So I kind of owe my streaming career to Ed's positive reinforcement, and I think that in a way is also a attribute that makes one a professional, is the ability to inspire others.
Wow, Runic, your origin story is mine.
So there you go.
I've had a couple other people say the same thing at Adepticon. Where
Yep,
hey,
Ed
you
also
got
fostered my Twitch streaming as well.
Wow,
So
I'm
what
honored.
you're saying is Ed is responsible for every terrible thing that you people do for the rest of his natural life?
Yeah, so we blame our success on ourselves, and then we blame our failure on Ed.
So Ed, you're patient zero.
I'm patient zero. Well, at least for our little community, maybe. So it's but that's good. I'm glad you all took a chance and got started, and doing it.
I got a little question for you, Ed. How humbled or frightened would you be if I started making little pins that put Monster Den Minis got me to start streaming, and I just started giving it to everybody?
Boy, I think that would lead to, wow, how, tell me more. It's but no, that would be I don't know. It's like, it's not my intent is just to encourage people. It's such a great hobby. And
Runic, it's only a bad idea if you put Ed's phone number on the button.
Yeah,
Oh man, you spoiled the surprise.
It's a great hobby. I think if mini painting isn't your hobby, and I'm going to be talking about this at maybe at Dragonfall, but definitely at Phalanx Con, I'm planning on doing a session about being a mini painter and what it takes and that kind of thing. But if what this hobby has taught me is get a hobby, enjoy it with people. It's about people. It's not about what you're doing. If mini painting is your thing, great. If board gaming is your thing, great. If knitting, crocheting, latch hooking, whatever, if that is your thing, the important thing is to grow in it, enjoy it with a community, enjoy it with other people. That is the key. That is the key. And I think it really helps for mental health too. That's why I started doing this, was for mental health. I was tired of World of Warcraft for 15 years.
I completely agree with that sentiment. I don't think I would still be mini painting, honestly, if the community weren't so wonderful.
Yeah,
Best
I
community.
agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a
100%.
weird motivation because not only do you get that stimulus of other people doing the same thing you're doing, but painting is in itself a very lonely activity. But the
Mhm.
fact that we have the ability to share what we're painting and share our inspiration, and share our skills and tricks and joys and blunders and the hobby, it's something that of an aspect that I never thought I would need in my life is the community.
Mm.
And just because we share in the fact that we all paint, there's also other people who do different versions of the same media where, Falling Freely and Wapelius, they both work in 2D. They both do stickers and just silly things like that outside of it. And that still is something that we all lean on each other for and support each other for. And it keeps us going. It keeps us motivated and inspired.
Whatever whatever our background is, whatever we believe, whatever our political opinions, doesn't matter. We're all mini painters here.
Betcha. You betcha. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
What it's
And
all about. Maze Blitz just kind of summed up, I think, a pro miniature painter and he has almost like bullet points here.
Okay.
Paints miniatures at a high level of skill, consistently gets paid to do it by either selling painted models, doing commissions, and teaching.
Dang it. The teaching part's going to get me.
Well, I think it's or. I
quit
don't think
as
it's
a
all of
college
those things.
instructor.
Yeah, I don't think it's all of those things. I think it can be.
you have to be all of them or none.
All of them or none.
All right.
The,
So,
give
the
a
most
checklist.
important thing is whether you're in camp wearing pants or not wearing pants when you're painting. Because if you're in camp not wearing pants when you're painting, teaching others in person is probably not the best idea for you. I'm sorry, Quantum.
It might
I
get you
mean-
in a little trouble.
You might have a crowd. There's an audience for that somewhere. We know there's an audience for that. Someone wants that.
That's a very, on that very thing. Next Saturday, we have a little con going on in our community called Magic Con, and one of the guys who's from the local shop is painting some stuff at a paint and take table, whatever, and he's invited me to come and sit at the table and paint all day, and and help him with the booth, and also to talk to people about getting into painting and whatever, which I thought was really kind of cool. But it's just funny that out of nowhere, I think also sometimes the opportunity chooses you. You don't choose the opportunities, or sometimes you don't find them. Sometimes things fall, into your purview, and it's what you make of it. I think at the end that kind of gets you into that. I think a professional capitalizes on the opportunity, where someone else, like a hobbyist thing, either may shrug from it because they're not prepared or they're not ready for that kind of thing, or sometimes a non-professional may not recognize when that opportunity comes. Maybe that's part of what being a professional is recognizing the opportunity and then making something of it, whether it's a failure or progress.
Excellent.
Chance favors the prepared mind.
All
Oh,
right.
well, then I'm definitely out.
All right. Well, excellent. We are at 8:30, so we can let Runic get to thing. I appreciate everybody going over. This has been a very most excellent. I sound like Bill and Ted. Most excellent adventure. No, most excellent topic.
Great success.
Yes, and I think it certainly did branch off in a lot of directions that are really making me think. Really making me think. I think that everybody's conversation and chat is we're all in the same boat. We're all thinking about that now, and that's what makes a great topic. So thank you, Runic, for being our guest tonight. You're always welcome to return, and
I appreciate it.
And thanks for leading
and I'll
us.
take you up on that offer.
All right, we'll count on it. We'll count on it. And so we're gonna switch over to our regular stream. Then we'll play some marbles right away. So stick around, everybody. I want to thank everybody, the council, James Wapple, Painterly Git, Falling Freely, Quantum Reveries, Black Skull, and Blades 81, and of course our special guest Runic Racoon. Go check out Runic on Twitch. Please check out the stream, and you'll learn. And Mazeblitz just made a point. Teaching is YouTube or Twitch or any of those things too. We're teaching every time. I hop on stream, I'm hoping somebody learns a little something, whether or not it's a class or not, you know. So you're in, Quantum. Just get back to streaming, man.
I just realized that we missed the most important thing about whether or not you're a professional miniature painter.
What is that?
And we should all feel ashamed of ourselves for not having thought of it and talked about it and brought it up earlier. Ice yellow.
Ice yellow makes you a professional miniature painter. That's it. That is the answer.
Look, I gotta disprove that. I'm gonna disprove that. I primarily painted my model in ice yellow just to see, and no one said a word. So I have disproved that theory.
Yeah,
I'm semi-professional because I use buckskin pale.
Is that like 42? Is that like 42 for miniature painting? Ice yellow. The answer is ice yellow. So I think we need to have.
The answer is you're not using enough ice yellow.
There you go. All right.
You know, when I did the Alice deal for Wes and Beast, the teacup that was broken on the side with the saucer on the left side of the model, I purposely coated that in ice yellow, then did a little dulling of it to make the shadow, and then I rimmed it with a little ice yellow, and nobody said anything either. I was kind of pissed.
Minja says, I don't know ice yellow.
Because you had enough ice yellow.
I've got my own bottle of ice yellow. Thanks to Joe Minnesota sent me a bottle of ice yellow. It is a neat color. I am kind of falling in love with this for highlights. It's a pretty cool color. Anyway, so did we forget anything here? I know we didn't have our special question at the end of the night, but since we already went over, I don't want to keep anybody too much longer. But think about that for next time. Normally we do kind of a weird, funny question at the end of the night, but we'll forego that this time because of some great conversation. So thank you again, everyone. So for coming and hanging out, and certainly appreciate all your expertise and time and community and all that you put into it. Greatly appreciated.
I think that we missed Blades' origin story.
Blades, did we miss you?
Oh yeah, I've just been lurking the whole time. Sorry. My origin story of how I got into mini painting?
Sure. Let's do it.
Well, it's been about 9 or 10 years now. Actually, Painterly Git got me into that. I saw that he was painting, and I started painting along. So that's who got me into it. What's that?
I blame AJ. He's the one who got you into it.
So community.
Yeah,
so it
AJ
comes down
was,
to community.
Yeah, I don't remember who got me streaming originally, though. That might have been Painterly Git too.
I think that was Ed.
I believe the correct answer is blame Ed.
Yes.
Blame it.
It was Ed. It was Ed.
Yeah.
So yeah, my
Awesome.
story's kind of
All right.
boring compared to everyone else's.
All right. Is ice yellow a cool
Oh.
color or a warm one?
Ice yellow.
It's actually it's kind of a cream yellow. I would consider it a warmer yellow than a cooler yellow. It's definitely not that yellow. It's almost like ivory mixed with yellow. Anyway, so there we go. Thank you all again for coming and hanging out with me. And Otis and I. Otis didn't want his bone tonight, which is kind of strange. But again, thank you to everyone. Please stick around. We're gonna do hashtag blame Ed. Thanks, Freely. Appreciate it.
New sticker idea.
The new sticker idea, blame. Well, there's always
Yeah,
there's already
2026
a
Adepticon
blame
sticker.
Jan. Genuine Vision has got that one. So he's got the blame Jan hashtag. So anyway, I'll let you guys get back to your hobbying or whatever you're doing for Easter with your family. Please go and take some time. So again, thank you all, our council. You guys are wonderful. Next month, Zambies is going to be our special guest. And boy, I wish I could tell you about the month after that as well, because Peter Lee keeps lining them up. And I know he must have blackmail material on these people. So hopefully we'll have some more announcements on the next month after May. So thank you again, everyone. Appreciate you, really do. So
Thanks for having
No,
me on.
you.
all right. Cheers,
Later.
everyone.
See you guys.
We'll see you
Take care,
next
everyone.
month. Cheers. All right, let's head back to the den.